Knights and questing. Name a more iconic duo. Whenever you think of the medieval age, it's a partnership that often springs to mind, in which knights would undertake daring quests to save a damsel, retrieve a holy artifact, or capture a castle. But did this sort of thing actually happen? Did medieval knights really go questing? So the answer, for the most part, is no. Sorry. The notion of a knight wandering into a tavern and getting a quest or his king asking him to find a holy relic just wasn't a thing. We'll focus on the late medieval period since this was peak chivalry. Most knights were of middling rank who served a local lord, and they spent most of their time administering their own lands. Making sure your peasants paid you fulfilled your obligations to your lord, and maintaining law and order was a full-time job, which, as you'll note, isn't questing. Knights were also responsible for some military duties like providing levies, and they themselves were expected to stay in top form, which sometimes included travelling to tournaments. So the knights that administered land often had several sons, and only one of them was going to inherit it all. So what about the rest? Well, they mostly caused trouble. Some, though, would stay in their family territories and were responsible for things like collecting tolls. You see, travelling across medieval Europe could be dangerous, and it's often because of these tolls. Knights and lords would demand payment for safe passage through their lands, and if you couldn't pay, you'd be forced out. And if you didn't pay but sort of looked like you could, you were liable for being ransomed. Often these wayward sons and their friends would join mercenary bands to fight all over Europe, and often on behalf of a lord they would raid their neighbours. And all of this was illegal, and so many young knights and even high-ranking noblemen were imprisoned and punished for doing it. In fact, 15th century France and the Holy Roman Empire had a real problem with robber knights, who, as the name suggests, were knights who just went around and robbed people. These were particularly bad during periods of national instability. If central authority was diminished, knights would just go to town, and then rob it blind. So was there anything similar to our idea of a questing knight? The only other real example of questing in the traditional spiritual sense of accomplishing a great feat is the Crusades. Knights and lords of all inheritances would answer the Pope's call and travel to the Holy Land to do their Christian duty and retake some cities and safeguard some artifacts. The call to crusade was one of a spiritual quest as well as one for loot and prestige.